Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it!
We are here to Field Rocks News, just the Rocks Field podcast. Of course, I'm your host, LaShar Bankley. I'm a credential writer covering the Houston Rockets and the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. You can find my written work over at Rockets on SI. You can always find me on Twitter at Binkley Hoops and Instagram at the same name. And on today's show, we have breaking news. The Houston Rockets and Kevin Durant have agreed on a new deal. It's 2 years, $90 million, which basically leaves $30 million on the table, a little bit less than that on the table for Kevin Durant, where she could have signed for a max extension. And on today's show, I wanted to kind of get my quick reaction to it because, of course, we just talked to Kevin Durant yesterday out at practice. I have an ideally already kind of knew that this deal was in place. But we definitely talked to Kevin Durant yesterday at practice, and today we found out about the news. So I just want to give my kind of quick reaction on this deal and what exactly it means for the Rockets, not just Kevin Durant, but other players as well, like Tari Eason going forward. I want to just kind of give my quick, recap or what I think about that. So just first off, initially, I think the biggest thing that you have to look at is the fact that the Rockets and Kevin Durant were able to come to this deal because Kevin Durant knew that the Rockets were in a certain financial situation. He knew that coming to the team, and you have to imagine they had already been talking about this. I know it was some reports or people saying that, it may be a problem. The Rockets may be just renting him for 1 year, and that could be a big issue. But believe me, Rafael Stone, Kevin Durant, his people, his agent, they had already talked about this long ago. They were just working out the final details to where it would make sense for everybody involved, because I know people were like, well, $30 million, that's not a big deal for him. But $30 million is a big deal to anybody. I don't care how rich you are. So the fact that he left that on the table to not only help out the Rockets right now, but help them out in the future. And I'm going to look at a little bit of that as far as the tax information goes with that. That's a big deal because it doesn't hamstring the Rockets now or in the future. And I think Kevin Durant actually talked about that a little bit in his Netflix series that they have, a Starting Five, where he was like, he didn't want to get traded to a team that had to gut the entire team just to get him. And then he's right back in the same situation he is like he was with Phoenix. And I think that's one of the reasons why he picked Houston, because he knew how they were trying to position themselves going forward, that they didn't want to be hard capped the entire time like they are right now, but they wanted to work it out to where they'll still be able to re-sign their own players as well as Kevin Durant, because you bring Kevin Durant over, as great as he is, and you've given up half your team, what good did that really do you in the end? Because you're just going to end up just like the Phoenix Suns. Said it's not just the fact that it helps the Rockets right now, it helps them in the future. And also kind of just goes to where the Rockets are as a franchise. You have to remember 3-4 years ago, they were at the bottom of the bottom. Players did not want to come play for them. They were getting trashed all over everywhere from former players like John Wall saying how horrible the organization is. And there's just no way that anybody was going to come sign here. And then it started to switch when they started bringing people like Fred VanVleet and bringing people like Dylan Brooks, and brought in Ime Udoka to lead the franchise. And even bringing in Fred VanVleet, a lot of people thought the Rockets overpaid for him, but it's a saying that a lot of people are starting to say it's the bad tax that you have to pay when you're a bad team, that you have to overpay for certain players. And the Rockets had to do that because they had been such a, bad franchise for 3 or 4 years while they were rebuilding. They just weren't really winning games. So now you see that the Rockets are a team that players want to come play for. We saw it during free agency this year. Dorian Finney-Smith could have went and signed somewhere else. He wanted to sign with the Rockets. Clint Capella absolutely could still start for some teams, and he was willing to come to the Rockets as a third center. Kevin Durant could have picked another team. He didn't have to come to the Houston Rockets. And I know he didn't have a no trade clause, but he still picked exactly where he wanted to go, and he wanted to come to Houston because of the reputation they built, with MA, with Rafael over these last few years. Now you also see it with Kevin Durant willing to take $30 million less, because this could possibly be his last contract. And he took $30 million less than he had to take for his deal. He could have took a max deal, and he decided to take less to try to help out the team. And again, yes, it's $90 million. It's still a lot of money. So it's not like, he's just giving up everything to come play for the Rockets, but it's still as you will see, with the tax information, it still makes a big difference. The amount of money that he was willing to take and the amount of money he was willing to cut off the deal that he could have possibly had. Now, the Rockets are set up to where going forward, they'll be able to sign people like Tari Eason because they're under this, as you look at this graphic here, they're going to be well under the second tax apron, which is a big deal, especially going forward, because the Rockets still will have players like Amen Thompson coming up that they're going to have to absolutely 100% re-sign. He's going to get the max deal. Whenever they finally make that deal with Amen Thompson, he's absolutely going to make the max money, and they're not going to wait to the last second to get it done. So they have to position themselves to where, where they were under that second tax apron, that they actually had tax room. And now with this Kevin Durant deal, as you can see, they'll have that room to make the deal going forward for players like Amen Thompson, and more immediately for Tari Eason, because he has a deadline coming up tomorrow at 6 Eastern time, which is 5 Central time here in Houston, to where they have to get the deal done or he'll be a restricted free agent. And that doesn't really work out well for either side. For the Rockets, it doesn't work out because it puts pressure on them to get them signed. And you never know what can happen next summer, where a team that all of a sudden has a lot of money and is willing to give Tari Eason that money gives him a deal that you're not willing to make. And for Tari Eason, you have to look at the landscape and realize that it may be teams that don't have any money next summer. And with the new CBA, teams are not spending like the money like they used to 2 or 3 years ago, to where now we saw players like Cam Thomas in Brooklyn, where he didn't get anywhere near where he was hoping he was going to get on the open market. And he ended up re-signing for a lot less money, or not even re-signing, just taking the deal that Brooklyn originally gave him for a lot less money. And if you're Tari Eason, you look at that and you're like, do I really want to take that chance? Because I can play great, but then next summer come around and the financial landscape of the NBA has completely changed. So what do I do in that situation? So I really think this deal had a lot to do with Tari Eason as well. And I think that they absolutely get that deal done. If not today, absolutely by the deadline. And also it made sense for Tari Eason and his camp to wait to the last second to get as much money as possible on the deal. And I think that the Rockets all along were planning on re-signing Tari Eason. And now this Kevin Durant deal absolutely seems that that's exactly what they want to do going forward. They want to re-sign Tari Eason because he is a big part of the team. We saw in preseason how big of an impact he has. He's just a totally different player than anybody else they have on a roster, as far as a defender, as far as somebody that to get to the basket, offensive rebound. And he's definitely a player that you absolutely want to come off the bench or sometimes even start, depending on the situation. And I think they absolutely get that deal done before the deadline tomorrow. And then kind of just finally just talking about Rafael Stone. When he first took over for Daryl Morey, first off, Daryl Morey supposedly was retiring, and then like 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, I guess he got tired of his family that quick, and he decided to go ahead and be GM for the Philadelphia 76ers. But anyway, when Rafael Stone first took over, a lot of people had questions because he had never been a general manager, even though he had been with the franchise for probably, I think, longer than actually Rafael Stone. He was part of the general counsel because, of course, Rafael Stone is a lawyer by trade. And a lot of people had question marks when he first came over. And then when he made the James Harden deal, his first big deal, people had question marks. They're like, well, why did you make that deal? And we come to find out it was the exact deal that they needed to make, which, funny enough, it led all the moves he made back then for James Harden actually really kind of led to them signing Kevin Durant, because they got those picks from Brooklyn, which led to the picks from Phoenix, which led them to even be able to negotiate with Phoenix. And then, funny enough, they really didn't have to give a majority of their picks from Phoenix, just the one pick this year that was number 10. So Rafael Stone, there was a lot of question marks when he first took over. And then he has slowly continued to show that he knows exactly what he's doing with a lot of these team-friendly deals that he's been making. The deal he made for Jabari Smith was a really good deal, all things considering, especially if Jabari Smith can take that leap this year. It's going to be a great deal that he made with Jabari Smith. The trades he's made up to this point, the signing of Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, where some people were like, man, you way overpaid for these guys. But then people start seeing the value in those type of players that can help change your franchise. Being able to bring in Ime Udoka, because even though, yes, he was coming off of all the situation with Boston, there was still a lot of teams that wanted to sign Ime Udoka, and the Rockets jumped on it quick right after they made that decision. They didn't wait around. They made the decision really quick, and as you see now, it was definitely the right choice as far as bringing him. So Rafael Stone has been knocking it out of the park the last 2 or 3 years, and he does it again with this deal negotiation where they were able to get Kevin Durant to only sign a $90 million contract. But again, Rafael Stone has shown that he knows exactly what he's doing, that he's gonna make the deal that he wants to make. He's not gonna rush into any situation. It's just like with the situation with the backcourt. He could have traded one of the guys like Tari Eason or Reed Shepherd to try to bring in a more established point guard, but he's willing to wait and see how it plays out. Wait until December when they have a lot more options. So this Kevin Durant deal just kind of brings it full circle for him as a general manager, that Rockets have the general manager that can actually lead them to a championship. So again, all this kind of has played out, and it's all really started with Rafael Stone. And give credit to Tillman Fertitta for being patient all the years rebuilding, because it couldn't have been easy knowing you're losing money when the Rockets only winning 19 games and 20 games and losing 20 games in a row. He was patient enough to kind of let Rafael and his son kind of work out a plan to where they are right now, where they are a championship contender. And you wouldn't have probably thought this 3 or 4 years ago when the Rockets were losing 20 plus games in a row and were the 11th stock in the NBA. So again, kind of recapping the breaking news today is that Kevin Durant will be with the Rockets for at least the next 2 seasons. We'll see what happens after that. If he's still playing anywhere near the level he's playing at now, he may sign another deal, may do the LeBron thing where he signed this 1-year deal going forward after this next contract. But Rockets were able to get it done. It helps the Rockets in the long term. I think Tari Eason definitely gets his extension before the deadline, which is tomorrow at 5 Central Time. So again, the Rockets are in a really good place. They won't be playing again until, of course, opening night on Tuesday. We talked to Kevin Durant yesterday, so we won't be hearing from him until after that game on Tuesday. So we won't really be able to get his thoughts on it. But eventually we'll be able to hear from him as well. But again, the Rockets were able to get the deal done. And as usual, I appreciate your support. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button, because as you see, I'm constantly bringing you different things. I brought practice footage yesterday that nobody else had up anywhere on the web. I brought that to you yesterday. I'll continue to bring it to you throughout the year. I'll jump in and bring you a podcast whenever I can, whenever there's breaking news. So definitely, if you're not subscribe to the channel. And as usual, I appreciate all the support, and make sure you check out the next episode of Rock Field Podcast.